So as somebody's approaching retirement, how do they, prepare or estimate for the future impact of inflation? Because it's inflation now is going to be different as they get older. So how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question too, because the things you spend your money on are what matters. When you talk about loss of purchasing power, when you talk about inflation, when you hear about that in the news, what you're typically getting is the consumer price index or some measurement of broad economic inflation. But what matters to you is, where do you spend your money? Do you spend it on medical costs or pharmaceuticals? Do you spend it on travel? Obviously, you spend it on food and putting gas in the car. And so those things can really change very differently than the average total number of inflation. So a person who is renting a house, you're going to have a rising cost of rent. Whereas if you have a mortgage and you own your property, that cost isn't going to change. So we don't need to accommodate for changes in cost of living as much if we're not looking at rent. If you do a lot of travel, that can be very volatile with energy costs, but also that's just, a higher rate of inflation typically than other parts of the economy that we see. So you really want to think about what you're spending your money on and where you see those expenses going. And that's, I think, a key factor in preparing for that. So how do you go about doing that exactly? Really, it comes down to, where do you spend your dollars today? What's your lifestyle cost today? And then just running that forward with some modest expectation of how that's going to increase year over year. And as long as we're staying ahead of that number, I think that's really the driving force. Is you need to be able to increase your purchasing power, increase your potential cash flow or asset value in the future, so that you have more to withdraw in the future during retirement. So you really need to think about all of where your spending is going and how it may change over time as well. You might spend your money more on travel today. 20 years from now, maybe you won't be doing as much of that. So those are the things we want to try to cull out and looking at how we're managing for our spending in retirement. If our conversation resonates with you and you'd like to have a conversation about your specific situation, come to goodfinancial.com and click Contact Us, and we're always happy to start a conversation to help you prepare for your financial future.